You're watching Oak and Age. My name is Alan. This is the channel where we review spirits that have been distilled and aged in oak. Today, we're taking a look at this Connemara Peated Single Malt Irish whiskey. Now, I have never reviewed an Irish whiskey on my channel before, so I'm very much looking forward to it. But this bottle is also pretty special to me because it was brought as a gift by my good friend, Mo, who some avid viewers may remember as that Scottish fella who I flew all the way to Canada for the sole purpose of sitting on my couch so I could force feed him Canadian whiskey on camera and get his opinion. If you haven't seen that yet, there's the link. But wait till after this video to watch it.
I'm enjoying myself.
Thank you very much, Mo. I appreciate it. I hope it tastes good. We're gonna find out, right? Connemara Peated Irish whiskey. Peated. That's interesting, right? When you think peated whiskeys, you usually think Scotch. Now, Scotland and Ireland do have a lot in common. For example, they both share a mutual hatred of the Queen. They're also both countries populated with people that have strange little accents. And of course, they both share a long and storied whiskey tradition. Peating your whiskey in Ireland is not something common anymore. I mean, back before electricity, in the previous century, maybe it was more common, right? And if you don't know what peat actually is or does, basically in lieu of electricity, peat was earthen bricks that they used to use to both fire up the still as well as halt some of the barley malting process. And in doing so, smoke was infused and it found its way into the bottle, thus lending a very interesting, and I mean, if you ask me, delicious flavor profile. Connemara actually owes its existence to a Scottish guy, a guy named
Gordon Mitchell,
who was the founder of the Arran distillery. Now, I happen to have a bottle of Arran's Macri Moor, which is their peated offering. I've never opened it. I'm looking forward to doing a review. And who knows, maybe I'll do a side-by-side comparison. They might taste similar because they have a lot in common, actually. Irish whiskeys traditionally are triple distilled, but not this stuff. In fact, everything from this distillery is only distilled twice, which is actually more in line with how they do it over in Scotland. So, peated and double distilled, am I about to taste a mimicry of an Islay? So your triple distillation, they feel strips out a lot of the flavors, right? It makes it a more neutral spirit before it enters the barrel. And with the double distillation, you kind of get more of those grainy, malty flavors in theory. So I'm hoping when I taste this, that'll come through. Connemara, the peated single malt is of course a single malt. It is bottled at 40% ABV, 80 proof, and it was aged in ex-bourbon casks. From what I understand, it's a blend of 4-year-old, 6-year-old, and 8-year-old stock that's been blended together. The master distiller threw the 6-year in to try and marry the flavors that had been more developed from the 8-year with the strong, sprightly characteristics of the 4-year. So I'm hoping I'm in for a ride here, and I'm really keen to taste it. So let's crack this open for the very first time. It's a nice bottle, nice and green. Looks good. Glug, glug, glug. All right, so looking at it, it's pretty light in color. That probably owes itself to the fact that it is using secondhand barrels and it has not been aged for probably any longer than 8 years on average. But all the same, it's just like a really lovely, light amber. Let's see what it smells like. This might sound weird, but maybe not. Have you ever had Drambuie? Drambuie? Drambuie?
Drambuie.
It smells like Drambuie, which is it's like a cocktail mix, honey and Scotch whiskey. That is the prominent thing on this nose that I'm getting, but that's a good thing, I think. So honey and it's floral. I'm not getting a lot of peat. Not getting any of that smokiness. That'll probably come out more on the palate and perhaps even on the finish. Maybe some like toasty cereal notes there. Double distilled, so a lot of those malty cereal notes are probably going to come through. Certainly a little bit on the nose, but it may not pack a big punch on the palate because it is only 40% ABV, 80 proof. So it has been watered down a fair amount. This does actually come in cask strength form. I have not seen it in a very long time. I don't even know if you can buy it here, but it's enough talking. I want to drink. It's kind of nice. There's like a bitter note on the finish, so it's sweet up front, malty cereal notes, a little bit of maybe like toasted almonds, and on the finish you get a hint of smoke. It's more like a waft than anything else. The smoky flavor profile that I was kind of expecting based on what the label said seems to be missing a little bit here. I mean, it's present more so on the finish, but it's not very self-evident. Let's talk about phenols per million, ppm. Well, I don't know how to describe this. Yeah, I wrote a note about this. From what I understand, the ppm count on this, that's phenols per million, that's basically the ranking for how much smoke is in a whiskey. It's pretty low. It comes in at around 12 to 14 ppm or something like that. And by contrast, an Islay single malt might come in at around 25, 30, even higher. Some of those octomores can be in the hundreds, for example. So they're really, really smoky, lots of creosote. This is more, it's like a nod to smokiness without actually overwhelming. So in that regard, I think if you are on the fence about getting into a smoky kind of a scotch, but something like an Ardbeg or a Lafroig puts you off, Connemara might actually be a good introductory whiskey. It's kind of more along the lines of like a Highland Park in terms of that smokiness. In fact, Highland Park is probably even smokier. This is kind of pretty low down on the level of lots of smoke to no smoke at all, I would say. I love the smell of this whiskey. It just smells incredible, like honey and heather notes, but the flavor is a bit of a letdown, if I'm honest. I think just 40% ABV, you kind of water down a lot of your flavor. And I'm curious what this would taste like in a cask strength version, because I think it's got all the right elements there. The balance, it's trying to find its balance. There's sweet notes, there's bitter notes, that toasted maltiness is present. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not blown away by the flavor. It's still very nice though. So now we must put it up against our completely subjective must-have scorecard. Emphasis on completely subjective. If you're unfamiliar, the completely subjective must-have scorecard looks at 3 parameters. Would I buy it again? Is it good bang for the buck? And would I recommend it? So each of those 3 characteristics out of 5 adds up to a total of 15. Now remember, just because something is a higher score does not mean it's the best whiskey in the world. And just because something scores lower doesn't mean it's worth missing either. Remember, these things play into each other. If it's a delicious whiskey, but it costs too much, that's going to affect the score in either case, right? So take it with a grain of salt. It's completely subjective. All I'm looking for is to tell you whether or not this deserves a spot on my permanent collection. So here we go. Would I buy it again? Well, I never bought it in the first place. Shout out to Mo. Thanks again, brother. I would buy it though. I would buy it. It wasn't a bad whiskey by any means. I was underwhelmed by the flavor, but as an everyday sipper, I think it would do the job. And the smell is amazing. Macallan's another example of they smell good and they taste okay. So would I buy it again? I'm gonna give it a 3.5 out of 5. Bang for the buck. Here's where this whiskey excels, because it comes in Calgary at $60 to $65 per bottle, which is actually pretty good considering what it is, right? It's a single malt whiskey. Those usually start around 80 for the good stuff. So for 60 to 65 bucks, you really can't go wrong with this. I'm gonna give that a 4 out of 5. And lastly, would I recommend it? That gets a 3.5 out of 5. I think this is the perfect whiskey as an introductory into the world of peated scotches and things like that, right? I see on the forums all the time, people ask, I just tried Ardbeg, tastes like an ashtray, but I really want to get into peated stuff. Can you recommend something? Yeah, Connemara. Seriously, I think the smoke is so subtle, it's non-offensive. And that's a detractor if you're looking for that smoky flavor profile. But if you are new to smoke and you want to experience it, this is a really good avenue to take. Again, based on the price point, the fact that this could be an everyday drinker, you can't go wrong with it, I think anyway. So that gets a 3.5 for a total score of 11 out of 15. So pretty middle of the road stuff, but I like it and it's high enough that it would conceivably be a permanent fixture in my personal whiskey collection. And you know, who knows, maybe it'll be in yours too. I really appreciate you watching. My name is Alan. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you've ever tried Connemara, I'd love to know your thoughts on it. If you have any suggestions for reviews you'd like to see, I'm available too. Just slide into my DMs. How about hitting me up on the old Instagram, huh? Oak and Age Instagram. And of course, it would help if you liked and shared this content, smashed that subscribe button, ring the bell. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. Cheers. Doop, 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 dooby doop, doop, bop, doop, bop, doop, dooby doop, doop, bop, doop, bop, doop, dooby doop. Thanks for watching Oak and Age. Please hit like and subscribe. Cause if you don't, I will hunt you down and I'll gouge out both of your eyes.